Hey, Rebel Girls, we are back to talk about a little more on our finances, our journey for our real finances to be intact. And we have a very interesting topic to go over tonight, no matter if you're a woman or not. This topic is always interesting. So, we're going to go to God in prayer, and then we're going to jump right in and let's see what we can come out with. Bow your heads with me. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for just life because you are so good and you continue to show us that we can have life in you. And we just thank you today for that all assuring knowledge that there is life in you. We ask you to just continue to be with each of the Bible girls as they're on their journey as a real woman for their finances and all and any and everything between that they need to work on. Bless and keep them. It will be our prayer. Be with us tonight as we go through your words and see what it is that you have for us to do in this next topic here. Thank you, Lord, for your many, many, many blessings. Just praise you for how good you are. These are the blessings we ask in your darling son, Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen. Okay, so tonight, oh, thank you, Miss Angela. um, tonight, we are going to talk about, let's see how I want to phrase it. Because well, let me say this first. This topic that we're going to talk about is probably the one thing that our people don't ever want to talk about, and that is our wills and estates and final plannings. And I wonder why it is that we don't talk about it. And I'm like, my little hypotheses for why. I don't know the real reason why. So I'm gonna throw out some reasons why we don't. And you can put in the chat why you think nobody ever wants to talk about wills or nobody wants to talk about final estate planning. I think a couple of things. One, it actually makes us think about death because everything else we've been talking about is like you're getting stuff together or you're working on something, but if we start talking about wills, that means you got to literally start and visualizing that one day I'm not going to be here, right? So we got to talk about death. Maybe it's one reason why people don't. Second reason along those same lines is maybe people are afraid of death, so they definitely don't want to bring up the topic, or they're paranoid. I watch this show. I watch a lot of corny TV shows. And one that I like is um oh, I just skipped the name, just skipped my brain. Everybody Loves Raymond. And his wife was trying to get insurance and he overheard just a little piece of the conversation, and she was they had children and she was like, I got to get things in order, got to try to make sure it's good. And he felt she was trying to kill him because she was trying to put all the stuff in order. So maybe like people think like when you start talking about it, they look paranoid that maybe somebody's trying to figure out how much they're going to get or what's going to happen if you talk about it. So maybe that's one reason. Another thing that I think is common in our culture is that we think we don't have anything to list out, list out for people to receive, in your passing. But like we said about your budgeting, when you write things down, you're like directing where things are supposed to go. I don't care if it's a pair of shoes. Like whatever it is that you have, your will, your estate planning gives you the right to say where it's going and not the crazy that normally happens when we actually get to the afterlife. Okay, so let's see. Comments. I see that they don't think they have much to make a will. Yes. Okay, so like that's what I was just saying. Like they don't think so. So most people, or more people you're gonna get into this big dramatic thing. Like let's read the last will and testament of Carla Mays, and like she has to have all of this stuff. Like I'm telling you, it whatever you have, whatever you own, I don't care if it's $5.17 in the bank account is yours. And you get to say where it's supposed to go when you die. But if you do not have something written down that says that, then whoever I am not I am not making a joke about this, but crazy things happen in death. That's why I just thought of two things that happened that I know of in death. When you don't have your stuff in order, people got their pick of the litter and they really go crazy, about things. So we should try to have our things in order so that what you really, really want is what happens in afterlife. But I want us to actually look at scriptures tonight because I was stuck on the point that most cases we don't do the planning and in traditional, Christendom, if we could see it in the Bible, we could halfway think it's something that we should do. And so I tried to find all of the places in the Bible that will suggest to us that it's important that we have these things laid out, or that we could see in the Bible where things actually happen that alludes to the fact that there should be this transition. But before we start looking at the scriptures, I wanted to say that part of what I'm going to say tonight is I am going to be as real as I can. I cannot sugarcoat nothing about this topic, and I may have to say some things that you might not want to hear. I will say it that way, but roll with me. Okay, first scripture, which we already talked about once before, was the main scripture, probably the only scripture when you really talk about leaving something, is Proverbs 13, where it says, "A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children." We already covered that before when we talked about insurance. What I want to look at tonight is a lot in the Old Testament. And since we have already really read Bible Girls, I pray that you guys remember all of these stories and we can actually talk, really, really talk. The first one we're going to go to is in Genesis chapter 25. I'm going to set it up a little bit here, but it's going to be in chapter 25. Um, Main part that I want to say is just in verses 5 and 6. But I need to go back to 1 for it to make some sense. And we used this once before as one of our fun facts. So we're talking about Abraham. And if you historically know his story, God told him he was going to be the father of many nations, and his children was going to be the number of stars. Can't even count them. Yes, Genesis chapter 25. And then his wife did not have a baby forever. So she tells him to go sleep with her handmaid, has a baby there. That baby's name is Ishmael. And God's like, "I didn't tell you to do that." His wife gets pregnant. That baby's name is Isaac. Isaac is the promised one. So that's where all of the blessings are supposed to go. So we know historically in Jewish culture, the oldest son is supposed to get the birthright, is supposed to be the one that gets the double portion. If anything goes somebody else, that's fine. But the oldest one gets all the rights, most of the stuff, right? Okay, so that's backstory. Now, what we're about to read is what we listed as our fun fact, that Abraham had more than just Isaac and Ishmael. Okay, so we're going to start verse 1 of 25. It says, "Abraham married another wife whose name was Keturah. She gave birth to Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. Joshnan was the father of Sheba and Dedan. Dedan's descendants were the Ashurites, Letushites, and Leomites. Midian's sons were Ephah, Eper, Hanak, Abidah, and Eldah. These were all descendants of Abraham through Keturah." Okay, now I'm going to pause right here, even though this ain't got nothing to do with the story. Why don't we ever talk about these 6 kids that Abraham had outside of Isaac and Ishmael? Okay. Verse 5. "Abraham gave everything he owned to his son Isaac. But Before he died, he gave gifts to the sons of his concubines and sent them off to a land in the east away from Isaac. Y'all, y'all see how much craziness be going on in the Middle East? These when we say that it's brothers and cousins over there fighting, literally, this is where we could get that from. These kids, the only name out of here that we recognize really is Midian, which we know that's where we say the Midianites, but we know that Moses's wife came from that tribe. We associate her with being darker, so black or brown, skin. But all of these names, I was like, where it said they went east, right? So when you look up where they are, these are the people that's in Iraq and Saudi Arabia, um, close to like Turkey area. Is all of these kids right here. He gave them gifts and sent them off. Okay. Now, in most cases, when someone dies, there, in our case, our estate planning or our will, you ain't sending somebody off, right? In this case, we are actually getting a firsthand lesson of how messy, how crazy things can be when we are not evenly distributing things, when we do not actually name out what's supposed to happen. Because if you really ever listen to the news and see like the commentation of what they're saying, they're like, this is our land, this is our home. Like, where am I going to go? Why are you putting me out? Where's that supposed to happen? They're fighting for their position because they were sent east. This is where they went. And now somebody else is coming back saying, get out. Like, they have already been minimized from the first distribution of their ancestors here, and it's still happening. So I'm going to use this as your little nugget first, that when you get ready to do your planning, you got to think about what's going to happen after the fact. I have no idea what he was thinking about when he first did this, but the fact that we don't even talk about these kids when we ever talk about Abraham and he's supposed to be the father of many nations, clearly he is the father of many nations. We just don't ever talk about him. Okay, let's go to 2 Kings chapter 20 and verse 1, right? I'm not going to even read this one because this is so simple. This is where we have this famous line that we always going to talk about Hezekiah. We want to talk about the fact that he prayed and God gave him more years on his life. But what we really don't ever hang up and stop at is the fact that God sent the prophet to tell him to get his house in order. Okay, you're going to die. Get your house in order. And I hope for us, one of the things that we can take away is that we should not wait until we die. Somebody should not come and say to you, you're about to die, that you should do this. But the fact that God sent someone to tell him, get it in order because you're about to die, that should be a clue to us that we should be having our things in order. One day we will die. And again, because we're afraid of death, which I do want to talk about. It's probably one of the reasons why we just kind of let it like subside. We got to get past that because of what's on the other side. All right. The next one I do want to go to, which is in Numbers, chapter 27. This has become one of my favorite stories. I don't think I ever heard this, and I think every time I get ready to read this, I say I've never heard this. Until I started Bible Girls. When I read it the first time, I was like, what? No, starting over. So we all know in Jewish culture that it's a male-dominated world. And the story that we're reading comes directly out of Jewish culture. It's Numbers 27, verses 1 through 11. It is the story of the Zelophehad daughters. I do want to read this out so we can really get the points out of here. Okay, chapter 27, verse 1 says, one day a petition was presented by the daughters of Zelophehad, naming the daughters Mahlah, Noah, Haglah, Micah, and Tirzah. Their father Zelophehad was a descendant of Heper, son of Gilead, son of Micah, son of Manasseh, son of Joseph. These women stood before Moses, Eleazar, the priest, the tribal leaders, and the entire community at the entrance of the tabernacle. Our father died in the wilderness, they said. He was not among Korah's followers who rebelled against the Lord. He died because of his own sin, but he had no sons. Why should the name of our father disappear from his clan just because he had no sons? Give us property along with the rest of our relatives. So Moses brought their case before the Lord. And the Lord replied to Moses, the clan of the daughters of Zelophehad is legitimate. You must give them a grant of land along with their father's relatives. Assign them the property that would have been given to their father, and give the following instructions to the people of Israel. If a man dies and has no sons, then give his inheritance to his daughters. And if he has no daughters either, transfer his inheritance to his brothers. If he has no brothers, give his inheritance to his father's brothers. But if his father has no brothers, give his inheritance to the nearest relative in the clan. This is a legal requirement for the people of Israel, just as the Lord commanded Moses. Okay, so much in there. They gave reference to Korah. So we know Korah was the person who kind of tried to charge up why is Aaron them doing everything. And when the Lord was not pleased with it, he opened up the earth and swallowed them up. Like said, y'all ain't gonna live. You're gonna die. They said, we weren't a part of this. So we shouldn't be banned, should not be having issues. We know that we don't have any brothers. We know what the culture says, but our father's name should not be removed or taken away because they had just taken a census. And then they're dividing up the land and the property. You get a couple of things out of this. One, this is breaking culture, breaking culture barriers. But it also, if the way we kept reading, talks about if there is no, are no children, if there are no brothers. So it gives us a recipe for how we could write out what and how our belongings could go. If like I have no birth children, I have a daughter two daughters from my previous marriage, and now I have I'm gonna say a god great nephew baby. Don't know what to call him. That's my namesake. Like I know that I can say I want to leave this to them, but I have no children by birth. This little recipe says I could give to my nearest kin. I can give to my brother. If I don't have a brother, I can give to my father's brother. Tells us steps. So when we open the word of God, we should always be getting examples of how we can get things. And here was a clear distinction of this, but it also gives us another lesson. And when we do things, that we should make sure we don't leave anybody out when we are making our plans for the real I'm gonna say wills or estate planning, depending on which way you do, because there's two different things that we should not be leaving anybody out. There may be rules, there may be things that may cause us to think twice, but we should not do that. Okay. Then we have in Genesis 48 with Jacob. Jacob is about to die. So chapters 48 and 49. We have the most of Genesis that really talks about Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. And chapter 48 and 49 is saying that Joseph brings his two children, Ephraim and Manasseh, to his father, Jacob, so that he could bless them. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm a Bible reader. So when I get something, I'm like, why does this not make any sense to me? Have you guys ever questioned why, when we get down to the 12 tribes, we're getting the names of Manasseh, or depending on what you read it, like the half tribe of Manasseh is here, half tribe of Manasseh is there, Ephraim, because they're not one of Jacob's actual 12 children. And we also know that the Bible says that the Levites were not supposed to inherit land. Like they were being taken care of from the tithes and what was being brought to the temple. So the Levites didn't count. So technically, that would make 11 tribes. Joseph died, so that would make 10 tribes if you really look up the names as to how things should be split up. But we still get 12. That did not make any sense to me until I read Genesis 48 and 49. That Joseph brought his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, to his father. His father pronounces a blessing upon them. And when he did, he says they will become my sons. So because they are my sons, not just my grandchildren, technically, that they get listed as a part of the distribution of the land because the grandfather, in this case, pronounced the blessing upon them and included them. Okay. Joseph died, so he didn't have a clan, but his two children make up two clans that add up to the 12 because of his father's action. When he does this, his father is sick. Jacob's about to die. Jacob brings in all of the kids, including Manasseh and Ephraim, and tells them how things are going to go, and even talks about what he wants to happen in his death with his children, where he want to be buried at. He's telling his children that. We get that lesson here. But he actually speaks life over the children, right? Manasseh and Ephraim. One of the things that happens in this story is he's going to cross his hands and give the younger son the first blessings, or the more blessings goes to the younger. In their culture, that's not supposed to happen. The oldest child is supposed to get the most. And so it's a really touchy subject. As I said, some stuff I'm gonna say is gonna be really raw tonight because we're not Jewish, even though we're taking our cues from this book here. We're not Jewish, and we don't have the mentality that our oldest child necessarily gets more. Most cases, we're trying to make it out even. We don't want anybody fighting after death. In this story, Jacob actually back up. Joseph actually tells his daddy, "Oh no, you got it wrong. This the old one, this the young one." And even on his deathbed, Jacob is saying, "Oh, well, I know, but the younger one is gonna far exceed the older one." So even as a parent, a grandparent, or something, you may actually be seeing something that you are trying to push or propel and make great. Here's an example. I'm trying to get out just examples tonight. Here's an example of how he did not take the traditional routes and used his foresight as to what he thought or knew was going to happen and gave out the blessings in that regard. But in this lesson, we also actually see that he actually takes the time to give out blessings, right? Which most cases, when it comes to death, we're worried about the sick person. We're only concerned, like we're looking at the physical. The words that the deceased person leaves with their ancestors, with their children, grandchildren, could go with them forever. So even though it is not a financial blessing, I want to encourage you guys that you would actually include in your last wills and testaments and estate planning, that you would leave blessings to share with them. I can't tell you what it would mean to me if I was to be able to read a letter from my father right now. Like I have handwritten letters from my grandmother that don't amount to a hill of beans, but just me seeing her handwriting puts me in a solemn place and sometimes tears me up. But being able to leave something that's not necessarily financial could be worth way more than gold years later. So consider pronouncing a blessing. Okay, only two more. In First Kings chapter 21, we have the story of Naboth and his vineyard. We typically will only talk about this from the standpoint of Ahab and Jezebel's disposition, her attitude, what she, says to her husband. Is normally what happens in this story. But there's a piece in here about inheritance that we should pick up. So the story is in First Kings chapter 21. And in the actual story itself, so it starts with this vineyard question. So it says, now there was a man named Naboth from Jezreel who owned a vineyard in Jezreel beside the palace of King Ahab of Samaria. One day, Ahab said to Naboth, since your vineyard is so convenient to my place, I would like to buy it to use as a vegetable garden. I will give you a better vineyard in exchange, or if you prefer, I will pay you for it. But Naboth replied, the Lord forbid that I should give you the inheritance that was passed down from my ancestors. So Ahab went home angry and sullen because Naboth's answer. The king went to bed with his face to the wall and refused to eat. Okay. This man, Naboth, well, Ahab, this king, he got access to whatever he want to have. He could purchase, he could command whatever he wants. His neighbor, which if the description, when I read this, he wants to take this man's vineyard and just turn it into a vegetable garden. This man is saying that, hey, this belongs to my family. This has been passed down from generation to generation. No, I don't want to give this to you. And he's the king, so like he's not like trying to be disrespectful. He's trying to do it as humble as he can to say, I don't want to do this because it's really supposed to stay within my family. Here's an example of us to be able to see that it is important that we have things that stay in our family, whether that's a home, a car, a diamond or something, like setting things up that we could be the persons who will make sure that whatever we have, whatever our grandmothers worked hard for, whatever our grandfathers slaved for, that those things, like their time and effort, didn't go to waste because we didn't not value it enough that we just let it go. And in this case, he's even standing up to tell the king, no, I don't want to do that. So I pulled this one to give you enough of a glimpse to say that try to keep as much within your family as possible so that the value isn't lost. There's sometimes whatever you have, let's say if it's a home, for example. Matter of fact, my mom's home, I was at my mom's home one day and somebody comes to the doorbell and I don't know. And like normally, like we know anybody that comes to the house and I did not know this person. So I open the door. She's dressed, in a nice, she didn't look like she was just off the street, but did not know her. And she says, hello, my name is, she gave her name. And she said, my grandparents own this house. I was like, oh, okay. And she said, my last grandparent just died and we just buried them. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. And she said, and I was just sitting at that funeral. And I said, I'm going to that house today. I was like, oh, okay. And I'm thinking like, what do you want? And she says, do you mind if I come in? And I was like, no. Now, I knew her cousin, so I felt halfway okay because she told me who she was. I let her in and she wrote her name and number down and said, if y'all ever sell this house, please call me. I will pay whatever you want. I want this house back in our family. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet. And I just wrote it down and I just put it on the wall. I don't know if my mom kept that number or not. All I know is I just wrote it down. Because to me, for her to come and say boldly, like the house is not on the market. Like she just came and said, please give me first dibs to buy this house back. It was in our family. I grew up here, and when she came in the house, she's like, "Oh, y'all didn't change this." Like she's having these memories. There are things that you guys have that may seem like it means nothing to you, but your grandchildren or children, cousins, aunts, like somebody knows that, oh, this was grandmama's this, or oh, this was that. So try to keep as much as you can into the family, and hopefully there is somebody who actually has an appreciation for whatever it is, so they won't go sell it, later, which you can do something about that too. But try to keep things in the family is one lesson. And then the last one that we'll actually like look at the scriptures for before we like talk real talk is in Luke chapter 15. And I feel like this is probably a very familiar story as well. We typically call it the story of the prodigal son. In Luke, there's a lot of things that were lost, right? Or it might just say the lost son. In this one, we have a man who has two children, and the younger child comes to the father and says, give me my inheritance. Now, I already told you that in their culture, the oldest child is supposed to get double, but you shouldn't be asking for the inheritance for it. Like it's supposed to come to you when your, parent, grandparent, whoever dies. He goes and he asks for it. And the way the story goes is the father gives it. He goes on about his business, and the story shows he basically squanders it. It says he goes to a far country. He's, partying. He's living life up, high up. And he gets to the point where he has nothing. He no longer has his friends around him who was helping him to spend all the money. Like he just gets to the lowest of the lowest. He gets so low that he actually takes a job feeding pigs. And if you know anything about their culture, they don't think pigs are clean. Like they think they should never even be around a pig. So for him to go and feed pigs shows how low that he really was. And he came to his senses and he says, I'm going to go back home. I'm going to tell to my father that I could be one of your servants, but just let me back because I know the servants are living better than me. Story goes on. The way the story ends is the father sees the man coming, his son, and he practically says, we're going to have a party. He's like, go kill the fattest calf, get a ring for my son, put a robe on him. Like he's saying, like, welcome him back in. Okay. The oldest son never left. The oldest son's inheritance is still there. So he didn't give that part away. Now, most cases when we talk about this story, we're talking about the son coming back home. What I want to talk about for us in this story is the fact that we have an obligation to not just leave something for our children or grandchildren, whatever, but to teach them not to squander it, right? What good is it for you to really work hard all your life, do everything you can for your savings, your investments, you done bought the home, you're leaving it to them, you got all this stuff going, and then you leave something to somebody and they've spent it in less than 2 years. What good was that? Like you could have just squandered it while you was here. If we don't teach them the value of what we're leaving, if we don't give them the same type of lessons that you're getting now, for them to not be on the down spiral path to end up being in the pig pen. If we don't do that, then you really just funded a big party. Like in this case, he partied for a little bit. That's not what you want either. If you're taking the time to actually get your stuff together, you do want to make sure wherever you're leaving it, whoever you're directing it to, not only is set up for life, because that's, what we're trying to do from Proverbs 13:22, a good man leaving an inheritance for his children's children. You're trying to be that good man in this situation, but you're not trying to make it so that they just have no responsibility, that they get to just do whatever they want to do, that they don't really value it, and then they're struggling. Then that's a waste. So you want to not just create the will or whatnot, but you also want to make sure that they know what to do with it so that what you're really wanting to happen actually happens. You're putting these things aside, you're writing this up so that they can be better. So make sure all the way around the board that they get to be better. All right. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is 6 examples out of the Bible that actually shows us blessings, inheritances, wills, not leaving, kids out, um, making sure that we recognize errors, keeping things in the family, not letting precious family things go outside of family. Like there's so many things, and we could probably pull more. Like if we went line by line in every one of these stories, like there's so much more that we could pull out of there for us. Number one, getting our minds right in that, and also just giving us some examples to make sure that we know that this is something that is important for us to pause long enough to do. Okay. All right. So let me read what's in the chat really quick and then gonna jump. Okay. Not only should we just get our affairs in order, we should review and update them at least every few years. Yes. Especially if circumstances have changed, deaths, etc. Just updated my will last week after 30 years. Our Women Under Construction Network team hosted a clinic with lawyers offering free services to prepare your final will, power of attorney, and living will. Yes, that is so good. I was coming through the drive-through part of my bank the other day to deposit a check. And I noticed on the screen, I bank at Fifth Third. At the bottom, it says, create your last will and testament for free. Go to www.53.com. I had never seen that. I've been at this bank depositing many, many times. And I don't know if the Lord just allowed me to see it to, make sure I like make one point to you guys or not. But I know that to us it's like a scary thing. And man, most people who I'm gonna say who have their finances together, they know how important this is. And mainly because they don't want people to do whatever they want to do with their money. Basically, is why so many others do, have it in order. But there's so many opportunities for us to one, do it for free. Like what Miss Angela put here in the chat, like there are things that happen in our communities, and we should do more things like this because it's like I said, it's typically a topic that we really don't talk about. And because we think that, I don't have $1 million, it's not something I need to do. But we should. We should. If for nothing else, but to make sure that your children are not fighting, that you don't have your children waiting for probate for things to happen because there was no direction. And mainly because you don't want people that you didn't want to have it. Okay. There's so many reasons that we could do it, but it's scary. And I'm gonna pause right here also enough to say that as Christians, because we are reading this word and because we get to ask God, we want to have our peace, but we also get to ask God questions and we get to get our answers by really reading his word, having Bible studies, like having real topics. We actually get over our fears. So why are we afraid of death? Maybe needs to be a conversation somewhere. But as a Christian, if we know where we are going, we know that death is going to happen. What are we really afraid of? If we are afraid that we don't know where we're going, we definitely have that conversation. If we're afraid that we don't have things in order, we definitely need to be having this kind of conversation. Like, what is the fear that we would not actually get into the conversation to get it on the right path? That's something that we should be looking at. So to do this, if you notice, every week I'm trying to build up to the next thing. This actually assumes that you are already budgeting, that you're saving, that you're clearing out your debt, even if you're not debt free yet, but you're clearing out your debt and you're actually starting to think about the next thing. So I was using this book the first time that I taught this class, which was, ooh, I know it was at least 20 years ago. In this book, this one is the Financial Peace Planner, a step-by-step guide to restoring your family's financial health. Dave Ramsey, everything is so scriptural and biblically based. Um, the way he starts his chapter, he calls it first, leaving a legacy of financial peace. Again, he's not focusing on leaving money. He's like about leaving financial peace. And number one of the biggest things that we do in this is making sure that number one, that we're not having a fried chicken dinners or do GoFundMe's when it's time to bury you. We want to make sure that your home, like what all the assets you have are protected, that your children are not having to, get mail and try to preserve it, keep it, or get it out of, whatever happened, like making sure that everybody knows what to do. But the way he starts his section on it, he calls it build wealth and give like crazy. He says, that's right, go crazy getting rich. Now that you have no payments, like assuming we've already done all of our financial things, now that you have no payments, savings plan in place, you can grow your wealth for your future generations, you're investing. While your investment money is multiplying, you can spend your time managing it, donating it to your family, your church, worthy causes, and teaching sound financial principles to your children so that they will wisely manage their money as well. Give your money wisely, don't just give. All right. So, pieces that I want to tell you from a real standpoint, if and when you choose to go about creating your wills or doing your estate planning. I got it in four simple points. Number one, you gotta do it. So I'm gonna label this just be prepared. Like gather all of your so I'm gonna say your financial statements. Make out a list of the things that you own. Let's say if we take money off the table. Let's say if you say I have no money. Do you have a house? Do you have a car? Do you have furniture? Do you have a nice pot and pan set? You got a great Bible? Like whatever you have, you are wanting to itemize what it is that you find the value that you want to actually say, I want so and so to have this, right? You can have any insurance policies, any bank accounts, any investments, like all of the things from a financial standpoint you want to have all together. So first part, be prepared by gathering the things that you would need to create this. Second thing that I will tell you is when you actually start creating this, you have to be very specific, right? Specific. Because the fights that come after the fact is because something can be contested because you didn't write the specific thing. So I'm going to make an example. Say that you have three children and you say, I want to leave my home to my children. And you list your three children's names, Sally, John, and Joe. But Sally died before you died. but your paper still says Sally, John, and Joe. Is who I'm going to leave it to. Legally, Sally, is named here to get this. Sally's kids can come and be mad at auntie and uncle because they should be getting it. Your two children can think, well, your mom is dead. I don't have to give it to you. Like, it's not specific enough to say what's supposed to happen. So you can include clauses like what and the Zaholofa had daughters story where it said, if there is no sons, give it to the daughters. If there is no this, give it to that. You would have to give those type of things, especially if they're your blood, like your children. Like you could say, equally to my children, or equally to my birthed children, equally to my biological children. Like, have a way that there is no way that that piece can be contested. And then what's next? Like, there should always be a here and then that. If there are specific items, you want to specifically name the item. Don't just say my car. You can say my Buick Encore, my red couch. Like, be as specific as possible with whatever it is. Leaves no room for anybody to argue about anything, because this is what she wrote. This is what she meant. If it is any ambiguity in there, and somebody that's listed or not listed that think they should get something will go get a lawyer, and all the stuff that you planned is for naught, because now the court's going to decide because you were not specific enough. If you are very specific, there is nothing for the courts to decide except, does this person have the right to even question this? And if they do, we're reading what she said or he said. But if they have no rights to question it, that's not going to even let it be open a case. Be very, 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 very specific so that exactly what you want can happen. Okay. Then I'm going to say you get to name your heirs, like specifically who they are. I want to say James Brown, Aretha Franklin, certainly Michael Jackson. Like, these people who are like superstars, our heroes that we looked at for years. It took years for their estates to be settled. Some of them took a lot of time just to bury them, because they tied it all together. You don't want stuff to be dragged out because you didn't specifically say who it's supposed to be. Again, if you just say my children, okay, let's say if this, somebody pops up and say, that was my mom, that was my dad. Now your children got to go through these blood tests, got to go through all this stuff to figure out, is this a child? But if you specifically named them, that's not a question because you didn't say my heirs. You named the people. But here's the caveat. When it comes to grandchildren, great-grandchildren, or whatever, your children or your children's children are having kids, right? Say if you put in there, I want to equally give two when you name 4 grandkids. But now you got 7 grandchildren because your kids done had some more kids. Technically, those 4 grandchildren are the only ones entitled to what you listed because you didn't include the other 3, right? So if you start and you write the names of these 4 grandchildren, add you another clause that will include something like, and to any biological grandchildren born to my biological children, so that your other 3 or however many more grandchildren may come about gets to be a part of that number without you having to always update that name. You got to have the clauses in there that allows them to be included. Otherwise, every time your children or grandchildren have a kid, you got to go make that update. So you can include those little clauses. And then the last thing that I would tell you is that you got to make it legal. Again, Aretha Franklin, James Brown, the stuff that they wrote, the question was whether or not it was legal because of how it was done. Did she really say this? Was it her handwriting going back and forth getting stuff tested? Whatever you decide, And it's your decision, whatever it is. Nobody can tell you what to do. Nobody should suggest to you what to do. But whatever you decide to do, make it legal. You finish it, you write it all out. You can get you a lawyer, and you could get it notarized. You can list whoever you want to be the person who's going to carry it out on your behalf. Like, you get to direct any of these things. But if you don't make it legal, the whole thing gets to be questioned whether or not did somebody coerce her to do it? When did she write it? What's the time frame of this? Oh, she didn't mean that. So knock all of that out as well by finishing it completely and legalizing it. And then the last thing is somebody has to know where it is. Okay. Makes no sense for you to take all of these steps. You've done all of the things, you've sealed it, is exactly what you want, is legal, but don't nobody know where it is. So if don't nobody know where it is, here they come, getting their pick of the litter for whatever they're doing, and it was all for naught. So make sure that you round circle whole thing and complete it, and then let someone know, and preferably multiple people know where it is located, so that exactly what you want will be carried out. And don't be afraid to do this. What it actually should do is give you the opportunity, like Jacob, to take the time to pronounce whatever blessings you want over your heirs, or you could be friends, sisters, church members, whoever and whatever you're choosing to do with it. It gives you an opportunity also to actually speak life into them even after your death. So that will be my encouragement for you guys to, one, not be afraid of it. Two, know that you have to do it. And I can't even say like how important it is for like when, because life is short, right? We don't know who's going to be here tomorrow. So we can't say, oh, I got time for that. And it doesn't mean that you got to have all of the other stuff in place already. It means you got to pause long enough to think about it and actually make sure that someone knows, what. Like there's multiple times I've had, one of my sisters will send me a copy of an insurance policy. Here you go, just so you know where to go. Here you go, and I'm having to, trying to file, because when the day comes, I don't know if her husband will know what to do, but I should know because she told me, already. You want to make sure that you are all inclusive, that everything is how you want it to be, so that even in your death, what you spoke, what you lived for, the financial peace that you are trying to bring is actually passed down to your children. And that is the real legacy. All right. What kind of questions do you guys have or comments?
Think that so working in the healthcare field, I've noticed that they've changed the wording. Like for the most part, you have your legal people that may say like last will of testament, right? Because it's like, wait a minute, like you said earlier, it gets a little creepy. Like, wait, I'm planning my death. Like, hold on. But now, like in the healthcare field, it's listed as advanced care planning. So it's more of like, hey, and they went to that. The last one before this was end of life planning, but now it's advanced care planning. So it makes sense to now have it that way, and it's a lot more easier for people to grasp, to say like, oh, okay, let me just plan ahead. So look at it that way instead of like, dang, this gonna happen or this gonna happen.
Yes. And um, my niece owns a stationery business. She makes planners and stuff like that. And so during COVID, I think I probably took like 50,000 classes because I was just bored out of my mind, right? And I took this one class about how to create product. It was geared towards single moms, like create this product and get all this extra income. So I took this class to learn this stuff, and they was like, now make a product. I'm like, I don't want to make the product. I just want to learn, stuff, right? So in that class, I did what I called a legacy book. So like college calling it advanced. Like I said, I'm not gonna call it last will. I'm like, I want to call it legacy. Because if we look at the word, which is probably a like really good thing to say, like what changes the attitude is about what you are calling it, right? So if I said, let's call it the legacy book, because it truly is us saying we get to hear the story of our parent or grandparent. We get to talk about these things and they get to add pieces about what they want, give a blessing over their children or grandchildren. Let's call it a legacy book. Let's not call it a last will book, right? And she did. She created this thing. We gifted one to my mom, I think maybe Mother's Day or her birthday or something, for her to be able to write stuff in. And it's not just the creepy stuff. It's tell us your story. Like, tell us your favorite recipes. Like, write the recipe for that cake everybody likes. So you get to actually leave this legacy and more than just money, but it doesn't make you think of, oh, they trying to kill me. Let's see. It gives a different tone. So thank you for bringing that out, Carla. Yes, that is true. The way we choose to say things does make a difference. Okay. I see a question in the chat that says, does the will have to be filed in court that was drawn by a lawyer? No, it does not have to be filed with the courts. You have to write it up. It needs to be sealed. So they either just do like a notary for it. You got to have a witness for it. And if the lawyer would be the executor, or if the lawyer is supposed to inform the family of it, then you just need to make sure that that lawyer has the phone numbers or the details about that, your family, whoever they're supposed to contact. If the lawyer's just creating it and making it legal, whoever your executor is needs the official copy, and that person will communicate with the family at that time. If someone wants to contest it, then the lawyer who created it, when they do the notary and stuff, they'll have like a number or seal on there. The courts will get in contact with them to prove when you did it and all that. So it doesn't have to be filed with the courts. It just needs to be officially done, the proper stamps and seals that you were not coerced at the time that you did it, and somebody just needs to have a copy of it. Good question, though. Okay. All right. I see in the chat. Awesome nuggets. Thanks so much. Love the connotation of legacy. Yes. Legacy. Because if you think about it, like what are we trying to do here? We're not like my father. I I I wish my father was here. So I'm not going to say that yeah, I wish not, right? I really, really wish he was still here with us. And with yesterday being Father's Day, matter of fact, I'm in St. Louis right now, at a conference that he used to bring me to all the time. And when I picked this hotel, I remember him bringing us here and said, we're going to stay across from the stadium so I can literally watch the Cardinals game. So I'm like, literally like almost have recreated something I did with him, like kind of like nostalgia, right? Um, but I can recall him literally saying, my children better hope that I die before their mom. Because if my wife is already gone, I'm leaving everything to the church, right? And people used to just laugh. I didn't laugh because I knew he was serious, right? He trained us, he raised us to tell us to keep our finances in check, to be responsible for our stuff. And he seriously loved God and loved the church. I truly believe that he would have literally gave everything to the church and not gave us a thing. I really do believe that because of the way he raised us, not because he was saying, I ain't gonna leave up to your life. But at this very moment, like, look, my mom is alive, right? My dad is deceased. My mom gets, all of his things and whatnot. But at this very moment, there are so many people that always come to say to me, I know my sister's here, the same thing, whatever, the legacy that your father left in you guys. None of that is about money. All of it is about how we treat people, how we study the word of God, how we value family. Those are the things of the legacy that I feel like my father left us. He didn't leave us broke. But those things are way more important than money. And as you're going through your legacy with your children, grandchildren, and whatnot, I will pray that it's not just money. Like one of the things that I I envy with one of my sisters is my grandmother taught her how to make dumplings. I love dumplings, but I don't know how to make them. But if my grandmother had taught me that, you know how much I would like probably eat dumplings all the time because oh, granny did this, right? There are things that you give, that you pass on, that's not money. That's true legacy because they get to say, my granny taught me that, or my mama taught me that, my mama taught me that, like whoever, and it does not ever, ever need a penny to happen. The pennies will help, but the legacy does not have to have a penny. So yes, please give, pass on the value of family. That's one, I promise you, I family, number one, is something that I truly, truly, truly do value. And it's because I saw how much my father did. Now, I saw things that he did and I questioned them, like, why is he doing that? Right. But then he treated us and taught us, things differently. And I'm like, that ain't what you did for your sisters. That ain't what you did for whatever. And he literally was saying, I want y'all to be better. I want more, for y'all. It wasn't a dime. It was a mentality that he was giving us. It was a heart that he was giving us. It was a mindset that he was giving us to want more, to do more, to not just let, happenstance, not just let it be, and to love the Lord enough to study his word so that we wouldn't go crazy when he passed. We wouldn't not know what to do because he's not here anymore. That's the legacy, that he leaves. You guys have a legacy that you could be passing on to. Like I'm a joke with Miss Yolanda. Miss Yolanda make the best brownies in the world. I wish she would teach me how to make these brownies. She's probably going to tell me to shut up, Demetria, because she know that I can't bake. So I probably wouldn't follow the instructions that she give, but those brownies are amazing. That's a legacy that should be passed on to somebody. Like people will say, "Oh, we never learned how to make so and so's peach cobbler before she passed." Why not? Why didn't you spend time with that person? Why didn't you just sit with that person? That's a legacy too. So don't just think in terms of money, but certainly because death make people do ugly things. If you have your stuff already intact, you ain't got to worry about it. They could be mad at you, but guess what? You're in the ground already. Ain't nothing they can do. Direct what you want from your pen. My mother always would say the power of the pen is mightier than the sword. And because you can put in writing what you want, nobody and nothing can change that. Just have all your ducks in a row when you do it. All right. Anybody else? Any questions or comments? Okay, I see in the chat, we took it for granted, and I so regret not asking my mom to write it down. Yeah. And you know what? Because a lot of times, well, how I started, we're afraid of death. We don't actually have the conversations because we think we got time. All of these things that we could learn. A lot of it really is us just stopping long enough to just do it, right? But certainly knowing that, hey, I want to learn this. I want to be a part of this. I want to keep this in my family. Somebody got to learn this stuff. Somebody needs to pass it down. Okay, let's see. A Hazel's Pie Crush is near and dear to my heart, and I'm glad I recorded the lesson. Yes, that's a legacy within itself. If you somebody you could make this pie, and people are like, this tastes like Aunt Hazel. Like, yes, because she taught me, right? And now you will be obligated to teach somebody else so that it stay or write it down, that it stays within the family. All right. So, ladies, put your thinking caps on, gather your things that you know that you could list. Um, and even if it's not more than just making sure that you tell someone where things are. Like I can't tell y'all all the crazy stories, in depth that I personally know about. Um, And I don't have a lot of experience, in it. But praise, God, that I have not lost too many people. That my stories are not, because I got a million deaths that I know of. I only got a few, but every one of them got three, four crazy things that happen, in death simply because people get crazy when death happens. So don't let that be you. Do not let that be you. You could be a good steward of your own stuff that you worked so hard for by just writing it down. All right. Anyone else before we end? All right. So I did say this at the beginning of the class. So we'll have one more section, which will be next week when it'll be our last session on our financials series. We'll take 6 weeks off. We'll start again on August 17th. We'll go through the end of October with our mental health series. And then we'll get our 2 weeks and then finish up with our spiritual gifts, not spiritual health, spiritual gifts before we end out the year. All right. So if there's no other questions or comments, I hope you guys have a good week. Bye.